thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Chester. You guys know what I like to do on my show. I want to enlighten, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. Now, Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And today, we want you fired up about my guest. I'll be spending time with Link Thompson today about his book, Honoring Our Creator. So go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Hello, Link. Thank you so much for joining me here on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining me today. Now, as is tradition here on the show, we always give our guests an opportunity to introduce themselves to perhaps those few folks out there that may not be familiar with you or your work. So first question is, tell us a little bit about yourself. What makes you, you?
Oh, well, I was a farm kid, and very naive farm kid. I grew up in North Dakota, right up against the Canadian border. And I didn't know much about anything at the time, but Sunday school, we had that, and every summer. And so I always had this feeling that anytime I needed the Lord, I could call on Him. But I lost a bag of pennies when I was a kid, and I never did find it, and I couldn't figure out back then why He didn't help me find it. But nevertheless, from that point on, He has blessed me tremendously because I've always listened to my inner voice.
Now, being an author, is that something that you've always wanted to do, or did you find that life presented the opportunity and you said yes?
Well, yes. A friend of mine he was into Matthew 28, and I was reading it very closely one day, and it looked like it was talking to me. And I always thought it was a job for missionaries to pass the word of the Lord. But then I looked at it a little bit closer, and I said, I think Matthew 28 is talking about me. So I kind of got interested in doing that, and I kind of tried to get into a web blog type thing with WordPress. I've not had too much success with that, but I plan to keep pushing it for the rest of my life anyway. But during this COVID situation, I thought, well, here's a nice time to do a little bit more of that. Instead of the blogging book, I'll just write a book. And since I have 3 grandchildren, I thought I might run a storyline that would benefit them, their heritage and everything. So that's how that all continued. And most of it I just did all during the COVID situation when I was home anyway. So that's how it all transpired. And voila, a book.
Now, the title of the book, Honoring Our Creator, how did you determine that should be the title of your work?
Well, when you study all the religions, most of them talk in terms of God and use the term God. But the thing was, there's so many interpretations of who God really, their God is. God has a different definition by just about every person almost. But when you think about it, the Creator, that's where everything all started. And there's only one word that defines the Creator, and that's the Creator. And so everything, around the book of Genesis, it all started with a Creator. So that's why I decided to stick with one term that everybody would understand. And honoring our Creator seemed the right thing to do. And because He talked about in Genesis 1 that we were made in His image. And so I said, I can understand that. So I just went ahead with that mindset throughout the entire book about in trying to bring to life those very words in His image. And of course, I think by honoring our inner small voice, we are connected through that means that He created within us through His image, and that's where we get our close relationship with our Creator.
Now, when it comes to that statement that we are all created in the image of God, do you think that people really believe that? Now, I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus here, but do you think that people really believe that when we see there's a rainbow of colors of people come in all sizes and shapes and hues of melanin, do you think that people really believe that God looks like each one of us, or do you think that God has in his own way been commercialized?
Well, to answer everything you asked, what your perception, that's totally a good point. I just went a little different direction. When I was in the military initially, they put me through electronics school. So I got to understand electronics. I always maxed out every test on electronics. And in my life, I was a fighter pilot, an airline pilot, and everything in that world uses energy of some sort. Well, the electrical energy that is also a part of the laws of energy. And so you were kind of summing up my entire book, but my trail through the book would show that I was heading toward the end of the book to refine the thinking of just that very subject about what in his image really means. And when he said in his image, well, that means he must, he was the creator of the earth and creator of everything that we can see. So that must mean that he tied us in some way through an energy form that we could sense, and he could sense whenever we need him or need his help or things like that we could sense. So I thought, well, shoot, that's pretty darn close to something electrically related. And then, of course, most of my book, throughout the entire book, I pretty much used Siri as my source of information, and come to find out, our neural system within our body, our neural system is electrically orientated.
Absolutely.
So
it sure is. So I get what you're saying. You're talking about the energy that is within us. You're not talking about the way that we physically look. So gotcha there. Now, as far as the ideal person is concerned, the ideal reader is concerned, is this book appropriate for someone as young as high school, or do they need to be a little bit older in order to understand some of the concepts that you present?
Well, that's a good question on there. I don't think it would hurt anybody to know just the basics that I go through, because in my book I kind of lead. I have 3 grandchildren, and I let them read it, and they all understood it. So I figured not bad. Sometimes it's hard to communicate with the young, but somehow they figured out that, oh yeah, that sounds right. Now the energy idea and the electrical thing, like understanding electricity, that takes a while. But what's important to know about electricity, it's just like whenever you plug in, it's a source of energy, and it's always there. It's invisible. And you don't even know it's there unless you use it. Well, that's the same way with our soul, our heart and soul. God doesn't even know, probably doesn't recognize we're there until we need it. And then all of a sudden he can sense it through our neural system, just like we can sense him in situations. I've felt several times throughout my life that I could sense his involvement, because I've had so many blessings that just have to come from something in my faith and trust and living in agreement with our Creator.
Mm-hmm. Now, when it comes to reading your book, every author sets up their book the way that they think is best for the reader to be able to thoroughly enjoy it. Did you put your book in a way that we should read it from cover to cover, literally meaning just simply page after page? Or should we do it more so chapter or section, read one before progressing to the next? Or is it reader's choice? They can kind of decide what they want to do.
Well, I think what's going to happen, and I say this, and I say it with tongue in cheek a little bit, because I'm kind of patting myself on the back indirectly. I wrote that book from the age I started out about 5 or 6, understanding how I became in touch with the Lord and how I kind of always kept in there. And of course, along the way, and this suggests why it's kind of important to read it from cover to cover. Along the way, I was never, totally perfect and totally had everything all figured out, but I had good leadership, like my uncle and my mother-in-law and all kinds of people along the way, how important it was to have their nurturing along the way to kind of help me out. And then, of course, when my grandkids came along, it was my duty to do that for them as well. And that's why I wrote the book as a memoir for the benefit of my grandchildren primarily, and let it flow. But I needed to let my life come out, step by step. And in the book, I use the word scenes because I always loved that book, The Lion King. How that fed out throughout the whole book, the growth of the young, fed by his father and all the, and I just love that storyline of the Lion King. So I kind of use that storyline and scenes, and then so it started out that way, and of course I had a mission in mind, and I dedicated the book to the donkey. So I had a mission there, and I'll go into that deeper as we converse. But I think once people should read it from cover to cover initially, maybe, and then from there on, you might have to pick a little bit here and there just to reread it, because I do touch on energy things and so forth, and so and that might cause people to need to go back in and look at it a little bit more sometimes. I'm not sure, quite frankly. But I
Now, I have a little note here that says that you have a very interesting dedication in your book. Can you tell us a little bit about that dedication?
Yes, that's the nicest one to talk about. That's the fun one to talk about. When you're kids and you have Christmas programs, you get to find out who's in the part of the Christmas setting, and there are animals in there, but the particular one that I'm trying to highlight is the donkey. Well, the donkey was created long before the advent of Jesus and so forth in his birth, and long before that. But all during the Old Testament, the donkey was a part of all the prophecies. It talked about Mother Mary and so forth, and she's going to bring God among us, the child of God among us. So that always kind of stuck in my mind. And then, of course, and during the Gospels, the donkey was also a part of everything that Jesus did there, as far as his trip into Jerusalem and then the crucifixion. But the donkey was there as well. But the one thing that people never really paid much attention to over the years, because it was kind of, and I kind of tease with this one because the donkey was always on a cover-up, but they always put a blanket over his back. But being a farm kid, I'm used to horses and animals and all kinds of things. So the donkey has a perfect cross on its back, and I put several pictures in the book about the cross.
That is so awesome. I love that. I love that. I many times I say that that God has this great sense of humor, if we want to put a human aspect to God, that God has this great sense of humor, because there are bits and pieces along the way that once we discover it, it's like, wow, isn't that just awesome sauce? That it becomes those little things that can keep you motivated or inspired or empowered to keep moving forward, and just those little extra touches that make his creation just such a beautiful thing. I love it. I love it. It is time for us to go to break, but before we do, let me remind you that the title of the book is Honoring Our Creator. It is available on Amazon or where books are sold, and the author is Link Thompson. We'll be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Chester. My guest today is Link Thompson, and we're talking about his book, Honoring Our Creator. Now, my next question for you, Link, is when we read the Bible, it starts with the book of Genesis. If you are reflecting upon Scripture and applying it to life and all that good stuff, do you have a Genesis that you start with in your book?
Well, the book all depends on the book of Genesis, especially the first chapter. My book is really created around the first chapter, so to speak, because how we were made in his image was such an important theme throughout my book. And that's really why that's one of the most important books for me to start with throughout the entire Bible. And I pretty much stuck to that one theme and that one verse all the way through. And that verse was, we were created in his image. And there was a reason for that. He wanted to be close to us, in a way that he could, love. He created us to love us, and he went all out with that and made us just enough similar to him in his terms of energy, where we can chime in with him and relate to him, and he can work with us. And it's just like I lost my son in a car accident by the fact that we are tied to him through our inner voice. Anybody that's caught up in such a situation like that, and my son had given his life to the Lord years ago, and as a result of that, there's no doubt in my mind that I can find peace of mind knowing that he's with the Lord, because he's on the same electrical connection, so to speak, right to the Lord. So he was picked up and delivered right to the front doorstep of heaven, right in the midst of that car accident, because that's the way electronics work. Electrical stuff works just on an instant spark, to use your word. And so that's how important it was to me in this book too, to bring that to light. That's how the best couple of words in the Bible are in His image in my book, because I think in terms of energy and electrical nature things.
So I want to give you a little bit more time, and you kind of talked about it a little bit, is that you're looking at the scripture that says that we are created in the image of God. And I think that most people think of that in a very physical sense, that when they look in the mirror, that they believe that God looks like their physical self. But it sounds like you're talking more about our spiritual selves, our soulful self, about the energy that is within us. For someone who may not be familiar with that concept and they've never thought about it from that perspective, why is it important, that breath of life that God has given us? Why is it important that we focus on that energy as opposed to what we perhaps have been traditionally taught along the way?
Yeah, that's a good question, and the best way I can think of it is, if you think of the other way, the other way that people think about them, you think about how our bodies made up, and this is what's really cool about Genesis too, that I love, and I'll start with that, make it all make sense. And that is when God made us in the book, He says He picked up a handful of dirt and He breathed on us, and He turned us into an image, or He turned us into a human that can and created internally, electrically internally, in our mind, in our heart, in our soul, in our neural system, that is favorable for Him to work with. That is electrically natured, just like He is. To me, our Creator is electrically natured, and that's how He controls and runs His entire universe. Everything in the universe has some kind of electrical connection, it seems like. And all the energies there are in the world, there's so many different kinds, but they're all transmutable and they're never lost, and He can work with every single one of them. But the one that makes us more close to His image is electrically natured, and it's electrically natured spirit. Well, and of course, if you're in a situation where you're going to pass away, and it's a little bit tough to take the whole body to the heaven and find a spot for it, but since we're made in His image anyway, He can take us spiritually to anywhere in the universe, or wherever He wants to take us, with just a flick of a switch, like on your iPhone, on your light switch, and flick a switch, and just bingo, you're gone, and you can be in another part of the universe, electrically speaking, just like our system with our iCloud and so forth. So that's a reason why He made us in His image, that He can just pick us up in a heartbeat and take us anywhere we go through our electrical system, and which is in our, when I say electrical system, our neural system that we use for making sure we don't step on a rattlesnake or something like that. Once it get our attention, makes us move and things like that, or gets out of the way of a grizzly bear, which is what I use in the book, is that it's electrically natured, and it's there always. It's always there, and just like the Lord and our Creator, it's always there with Him too. And once he senses ours when we think about him in a flash. He's there to pick up the pieces, so to speak, and grab us and save us. Or when it's our time to pass. I just turned 80 a while back, so it doesn't bother me. The only thing I hope I can do is pass away with a smile on my face, because I know where I'm going. So that's how I do that.
So do you believe that when we have a better understanding that we are all spirit beings, that we are all energy, that's how we are better able to connect with God, that's how Holy Spirit connects with us, because it is an energy understanding, it's an energy exchange, as opposed to that verbal word that we are saying, but it is our emotion, it's our energy that we are emitting out, and that energy, sacred, divine, creator energy, hears our energy, and we are able to therefore hear from God in that knowing that we have in our mind, as opposed to having conversation like you and I are having conversation. Are you saying that it is that energy, that knowing that we have, that connects us to God, that's what keeps us going?
That's exactly right. You summed it up very well. Electrical power is hard to really understand. It's a product of protons and neutrons and so forth, but and God probably works with protons. I'm not sure. I haven't talked to him lately about that, but the protons would make sense. It's a positive part of the electrical nature of the entire universe. In my book I tried to relate it to like a big car battery, positive in nature. Like the universe is a big car battery. You have positive and electrical, and of course our Father is definitely a positive. And we can be negative, and if we are negative, he won't sense us. He won't. If we have a negative attitude toward him or anything else in life, he may never see us because he's a positive nature. So, but if we live positive and think positive, and that has an electrical neural factor to it, electrical neural factor that he can relate to and sense. So, which puts us in concert with him. And as a result, when we need him in a heartbeat, he's there for us. He can be there in a flash. And that's my quick brief. But you were spot on. It's an energy thing. It's a spiritual, because energy itself, electrical energy, is pretty darn close to spiritual until you need it. It's there. It's very spiritual.
I think that more and more people are starting to understand what perhaps was not explained explicitly before, or people were afraid that they would sound too outside of the box if they said it, but I think that more and more people are starting to understand that God is so much more than just what's in the box. That, he is the creator of everything, so he can't be in the box with us because he's so much more than just that box. So I love what you're trying to introduce to those who are unfamiliar with this concept. I love it. Now, one of the things that I think that many Christians agree is that we should spend time honoring God, but we know that many people don't honor God mind, body, spirit. They can say a beautiful prayer, but it's really just words. They don't feel any emotional connection. While others, we can find they seem to be honoring God and very few words are spoken, but you can tell that they are in a place of worship, a place of meditation with God. How should we understand, now that we know that there's energy involved, what can we do to make sure that we're honoring God the way that we should?
I think one thing, and this is a little bit my situation, because I've traveled the entire world and I've witnessed this, numerous religions, so many, and all of them have some good factor, but a lot of times politics gets involved, and as a result, some of the good things about our Creator get lost in translation because it gets too localized and gets a little bit political in nature and so forth. So I think that's part of the problem. I know for me, I guess it started when, like I said, when I was in summer Bible school. I don't think I ever really lost track of my Creator all those years because I had good influences along the way. And then, of course, you know, when you're in the military, and I've been in combat twice, you get in some pretty rough crowds. But the point, rough groups and rough situations. But the point is, you know, when you think about that, you could be in a combat, you could be gone in a day. Well, you don't. You pretty much keep your mind on your Lord all the time because you kind of need him when you're in a foxhole. So, and other things too along the way that happened. And then, of course, when my sons were born, you know, a beautiful baby and things like that, you just have to thank the Lord. For me personally, I guess, and I was very fortunate, I had kind of nice, a trail of good things, a trail of blessings that kept me on target. And then as I was flying, you know, a lot of hours in my airline days, I thought, well, I was looking up into the blue heavens. I just kept thinking about the Lord. And the more I thought about it, I said, you know what? He's got to be an energy source for the entire universe. And of course, I got to meet some of the astronauts that walked on the moon. And of course, none of them think there's an atheist anywhere. And there are no atheists in outer space, is what they would say. And so we have got to, or we picked up that feeling that there's more to God than just the words in the Bible. The words in the Bible. There's a real spirit there. And the magic words are in His image. So if He says in His image, that tells me everything I need to know about how I should think.
I love it. I love it. Well, Link, thank you so much for spending time with us here on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. But before I let you go, can you please remind everyone, please, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And how do we stay in contact with you?
Honoring Our Creator. It's available on Amazon and where books are sold. My website is creators2015voice.com. 2015
Alrighty. Thank you so much, Link, for being a guest again today. And listeners, thank you for spending time with us here as well. We hope that we have enlightened, inspired, and empowered you. As always, may the Lord continue to shine His face upon you. May you receive His grace and His mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Bye-bye.